What type of creative independence do you think that you give creators?
Well, there's this great study that the Ford Foundation and NEA did in 2004 that was about what are the greatest needs of artists. And sort of like, okay, let's say we want to support artists, how can we help them? The number one thing they ended up coming back saying this is what's needed was validation. And peer validation is what people most wanted, but the greatest challenge was just, I don't know if I'm crazy or not. I don't know if I'm nuts to be doing this. Like, is my thing any good? And that was the number one need. It wasn't, I mean, like, well, cheap studio space was number two. So it's not like that's not on the list. You know, this is Family Feud here, and it's up there somewhere. But yeah, validation, the number one thing. So in the past, and it's still the validation that's most meaningful, but the validation was like a major media company wanted to put your thing in their pipes, right? And that was it. That was making it. And so ultimately, it was like maybe 30 people in the world that controlled whatever, what book could be published or something.
And you basically give people instant validation.
Yeah, you just open it up.
If their idea, it's democratic, if it's a good idea, people will support it.
Well, I had a small record label at one point in life, and there were small bands on it who bigger labels wanted to sign, and they always end up signing with labels, even though we talk about it, and they could maybe make less money not doing that. But always what it was they wanted a piece of paper to show to their parents, their husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend that said, like, I'm real. See this piece of paper? Like, I don't play music on the weekends, like I'm in a band. I'm a musician. And that's how thin, that's how thin the difference is between like being real, being not real. It's like a piece of paper that you don't understand 90% of the words in this 80-page contract. But that's what validates you. And so I always love this idea of like, could you create that feeling of validation for people without needing those people? And it's still a lot cooler to have one of the 30 people in their ivory towers bless you. I mean, that's still what we all want. Still everyone on Kickstarter probably wishes that they could be like, whatever, an HBO show or whatever the pinnacle of the moment is. But yeah, but just try to give that sense of validation, let you know that like, you're not crazy to be doing this,
But even taking it from the other angle, other side, don't you think it gives you validation by what projects you are validating? Because one of the things that's interesting, I don't know how many people have used Kickstarter's website or know how much about it is, you could actually go and see what projects at any given time that Yancey is actually personally putting up his own money and see, and I think actually that reflects who the individual is. Why is this individual supporting this business, this company, this project, or this individual?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess that's the word we use to describe that now is brand, which is like an ugly, blunt word, but I think that is the right word. For us, we were always with Kickstarter, we're very thoughtful, put a lot of thought into what should be on the platform, because that would just reflect on the utility of it. So we're creating a new way for money to move hands, so it can be like, hey, anyone do anything on this thing, just fill it with money. Or you can have a specific idea and try to build an identity. And we always thought that crowdfunding, which was not a term that had been invented yet when we invented the thing itself, but as it later became called crowdfunding, has such obvious broad utility. And we thought, like, this probably is when we would have said this will fix every problem, but like you could use this for pretty much anything. But we knew we only wanted to do artistic things, because that's what we cared about. But we did that knowing like there's gonna be the charity Kickstarter, which is GoFundMe. There's gonna be ones for all sorts of different slices, but we're just gonna decide not to be Walmart, not to try to have it all, because we think over the long haul it's like having that focused identity, and that that's our brand, and that's how we think about those things. But it's funny, like we feel an instinct, and this is all about market positioning, but we feel safety in what is most similar between us and other people, but our greatest asset is our difference. And like honing and owning your difference, being able to call your difference something, that's your brand identity. And And for us, our difference was always like that we're not going to sell out, that we're only going to be for creative things, that we're going to, basically that we're not going to be using you to get rich ourselves, and we want to build a community of people who have the same feeling. And that community is not as big as the Facebook community, but it's big enough to run a sustainable business for the last 8 years and to do many more things like that. But you only get to do that by not taking a ton of money, by, you know, there's always a trade. There's always a trade. And so our trade-off is like, you don't pursue hyper-growth, you don't get rich, but guess what? You get to have more control of the thing, and you also get to make decisions from a less emotionally challenged place.